Can you please state your name and your title, please?
Colonel Richard Kemp. I'm formerly Commander of British Forces in Afghanistan.
And why are you here today at the...
Sorry, am I looking at that?
Yes, yeah.
Am I looking at that or you?
Look at me.
Okay.
So why are you here today at the American Zionist movement?
I'm speaking today about the need for bold diplomacy in the wake of the Balfour Declaration. Obviously, we're celebrating 100 years of the Balfour Declaration. And Britain, although I'm very proud to be a Brit who, from a country that created the Balfour Declaration, I'm also ashamed to be from a country that then failed to follow it through, which resulted in the deaths of millions of Jews who were trying to get from Europe into Palestine, and Britain excluded them from doing so. So I think that was due to a policy of appeasement by the British government of Arabs, and that policy continues today. So I'm planning to make the point that we should be far more hard on those people who want to bring down and destroy the state of Israel.
Sure. And can you speak a little bit about your role in Afghanistan and how that shaped your ideas about British foreign policy and its role in the world today?
Well, Afghanistan was one of the numerous operational theatres I served in as a soldier, including Iraq, the Balkans and Northern Ireland. And I think I learnt there, in all of those different theatres, perhaps Afghanistan in particular, the need for strength. And when you're operating in that part of the world, in Asia and the same in the Middle East, people who perhaps oppose you or who you want to work alongside, they don't respect weakness. They respect only strength. They don't want to see great restraint on the part of soldiers when they're in a firefight. They want to see strength. They want to see people who are going to stick up for them and stand up for them.
So if you make concessions in those parts of the world, then they're more likely to be even more aggressive and try to take even more.
If they smell blood, they'll go for you and they'll try and get more and more. The more you give them, the more they'll take. So I think when you're talking about military operations and also when you're talking about diplomacy and policy, I think you have to bear that in mind. Obviously, every situation needs a different approach, but I think as a general rule of thumb, you have to take a hard line approach and you have to show strength, not weakness.
Sure. So on the topic of Israel and making concessions in terms of having given the Sinai Peninsula back to Egypt, clearly, do you think that has worked in terms of creating more amicable relations with Egypt? And on the other hand, on the settlement process, do you think that tearing down settlements or, for instance, providing the Gaza Strip to Hamas are actions that are getting us closer to the peace process?
I think we've seen that giving up the Gaza Strip, giving up land in South Lebanon, all of the different land concessions that Israel has made over the years have resulted in violence against Israel. They've never resulted in peace. Land concessions have never led to greater peace. They've always led to greater violence. And so I think any suggestion that Israel should give up more land is ridiculous. It's based on a lack of understanding of the mind of those people who are occupying that land, and also of history. So I think to make further concessions is wrong, and I think the very idea that Israel could withdraw the IDF, for example, from the West Bank is absurd when you look at the way the region is operating.
Now, just in terms of your motivations, I'm wondering why it is that you feel so strongly about Israel. Do you have a personal connection to Judaism or the Jewish people, or is this just an element of British history that you would like to write?
No, I'm not Jewish, and I have no direct connection to Israel. I've been there many times. I know many people there. I've worked with the IDF. I've worked with other organs of the Israeli government. But I think for me it's an issue of justice and what is right and what is wrong. And of course, Israel is one of the greatest allies that Britain's got, along with the United States of America. Israel has contributed a huge amount to Great Britain, including saving the lives of many of our soldiers and many of our civilians.
There is one last question I'd like to ask you, and I've heard mention an idea about trying to provide Palestinians with a sense of dignity vis-a-vis an exit from their situation. Of course, Great Britain and the United States each give a great deal of foreign aid to many nations around the world. Do you have any thoughts about attaching some sort of condition to aid to countries not related to the Middle East at all? Thailand, China, Argentina and saying, we're giving you some foreign aid, and in exchange you make a certain number of visas available to Palestinians so that they have an exit from this place that they're stuck in. Have you any opinions about that suggestion?
I don't think that's something that I would want to discuss. I think that that's obviously a possible option, but I think what the most urgent need is not to get Palestinians out of the Middle East and out of the West Bank, for example, or indeed out of Gaza. The most urgent need is to stop the Palestinian leadership from its aggressive stance towards Israel and its betrayal of its own people, and that needs to be done by very hard confrontation by the West of the Palestinian leadership. And I think the Taylor Force Act, just passed yesterday here in Congress, is a shining example of how that should be done. That it intends to cut off any payments to the Palestinian Authority while it continues to sponsor terrorism. That's the path we should be prioritising. I'm not saying the one you've mentioned is not worth considering, but I think that that prioritisation is more important.
And it would cutting off all monies into the Palestinian Authority's domain create a sense of greater desperation, or do you think it would just create improved security for Israel?
We're not in a situation of desperation. We're in a situation where,
I mean, for the Palestinians.
I know that, but we're in a situation where the Palestinian leadership is betraying its people. It's leading them it's led them into a situation where they've got a reason to feel desperate, but it's not because of what Israel's doing, it's because of what the Palestinian leadership is doing. And it's them that need to address that issue. And if they don't like the money being cut off, they need to stop inciting terrorism. Why should the United States or any European country finance terrorism against our allies Israel or anyone else?
Sounds like a two-state solution is not tenable given the current state of Palestinian leadership, in your opinion.
Absolutely out of the question. It couldn't happen. They don't, and in any case, the Palestinian leadership don't want it. They don't want their own state. What they want is the destruction of the Jewish state. That's what they want.
In
That's what they've been
recognition of
working
that,
for.
should Israel take back the lands that they conceded, for instance, the Gaza Strip?
Well, I think that has to be considered as part of a longer-term land solution to all of this. I wouldn't say that should be something that should be considered now. I think the situation with the Gaza Strip is containable. I think the possibility, however, of making the same concessions in relation to the West Bank would be not only wrong, it would also severely endanger Israel.
Thank you so much, Colonel Kemp.
Thank you.